Before we get into this episode, I want to talk to you about something that's completely changed the way I think about coaching. I've been around this game a long time, and like you, I've spent weekends buried in film, grading by hand, chasing tendencies, and still wondering if we missed something. That's why I believe in what modern football technology is doing. It's not theory, it's a coach built platform that delivers real time intel. You'll see what's working, what needs fixing, and where the edge is, while the game's still being played. Programs like St. John Bosco, Lake Travis, and Bishop Gorman already trust it to stay ahead. Stop guessing, start out coaching. Book your free demo now at teammofo.com.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. Introducing the all-new, all-terrain Honda Passport Trail Sport, the most off-road capable Honda Passport Honda has ever dreamt up. The Passport features increased ground clearance, roof rails on all trims, and available specially developed all-terrain tires. And you'll stay comfortable with tri-zone climate control and available features like heated and ventilated front seats and a panoramic moonroof. Learn more at honda.com/passport.
It's a sprinting sport at the end of the day. There's not a whole lot of jogging in football, unless you're jogging off the field, not between plays, between the lines. So just exposing those guys and increasing their neural drive, their coordination. To me, sprint work enhances your ability to change directions and make decisions, focus, all those things. There's research out there that talks about focus and what sprint training does for the brain. So you're talking about retention of the playbook. Can you get in the fourth quarter and from a mental standpoint, not make those mental errors? I think speed training enhances that.
Welcome to this episode of Sprint-Based Football, presented by Titan GPS. Founded and based in Texas, Titan GPS is your key to sprint-based football success. Designed specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter, like top speed, explosive acceleration, and even the powerful truck stick, speed times weight, for the ultimate performance insight. Whether it's optimizing practice, spotlighting players with 3D highlights, or giving recruiters verified in-game stats, Titan delivers. And with no minimums to get started, Titan walks you through every step. Message them on X @Titan Sensor to learn more. Titan GPS. Performance measured, potential unlocked.
Today, the beverage aisle looks a lot different than it used to. America's beverage companies are working together. We're delivering the options everyone wants. In fact, nearly 60% of beverages Americans buy have zero sugar. You'll find more variety than ever, including more of your favorites, now available with zero sugar. You'll also find more sizes and clear calorie information on the front of every can, bottle, and pack. We know when it comes to finding balance, the more choices, the better.
Welcome to the Sprint-Based Football Podcast. This is the 10th episode, and I'm really excited to have an NFL guy. We have John Shaw, the head of speed and performance for the Tennessee Titans, and I learned about John through a really good friend, Les Spellman, so you need to stay tuned. Hey, we got John Shaw here from the Tennessee Titans. John, tell me what you do for the Titans.
So pretty much I'm an assistant strength coach for performance, slated to do the speed development for the team, but overall training, I help with sports science, on-field training, everything that goes into strength conditioning. So I'm a holistic coach, but I've just been tasked to head the speed development for the organization.
Now, it's interesting you say speed development, because I've argued with some college people before who kind of treated like all their players were as fast as they could be, and there was no development once they got to college. You're actually saying in the NFL, you are developing speed?
Absolutely. My dad was a track coach, grew up in track and field, and, I always noticed guys in track and field were getting faster as they got older. So you got guys 32, 34 years old that are running their fastest time of their careers. So that tells me right there, the fastest people in the world can get faster as they age. Field sport athletes can probably do the same.
And you know what's weird too? Not only can they get faster, but they can also get slower. Have you seen guys that got slow at the age of 25, 26 in the NFL?
Absolutely. I think it's, talking with some of the guys here, I think some of the guys, the last time they do any type of speed training would be combine prep. So if you got a guy that's done speed training, combine prep, and they go 5 or 6 years in NFL and they're not in a program that's actually committed to developing that quality of speed, then I promise you guys are going to get slower. It's just a natural, and it doesn't take long, within a week or so, the speeds are going to start to go. So I look at when I was growing up, we sprinted every day at the end of the day and, never had issues with, soft tissues. I never had soft tissue injuries growing up. And we sprinted, our coaches sprinted us pretty much every day. There was no high-low model, no model where guys are, getting rest 2 or 3 days. Every day was 100%. If you were running, you were sprinting. So just that philosophy and just from experience, like I said, my dad was a longtime track coach. My uncle was a track coach. So been around sprinting for a long time. And it kind of naturally came to me just from being around it.
Now, one of the things, Boo Schexnayder, one time, I had him on a podcast, and Boo, I just have total respect for him. And he said that he believed that 80% of all college football players never reached their genetic ceiling of speed because they don't really work on it till combine time. A lot of them just work at getting bigger and getting in shape and things like that. Is that kind of your experience as well?
Yes, I think so until recent years. It's funny. When I met Les back in late 2019, right when COVID was coming around, we were talking. First time I talked to him, I said, dude, you're a younger me. Just all the things he was saying. So that's why we kind of hit it off. And since then, probably every week or every other week, we're on the phone talking shop, talking about, training, talking about things that I'm seeing. He's telling me things he's seeing. And I think it was a misconception of sprinting causes injuries and things like that. But in my philosophy is if I'm going to ask the guy to sprint in a game, which we do in football, soccer, whatever sport you're playing, you're asking guys to be fast and explosive. I may want to expose you to the fastest, most explosive thing you could ever do, which is sprinting. Sometimes back in the day, football coaches will be afraid, to sprint their guys. And I would just ask them, so what you're telling me is you don't want a guy to sprint over 10 to 15 yards in training, but you've got a kick returner back there, catches the ball at the 3-yard line. I'm pretty sure you want him to go 97 yards to the other end zone and score. Or would you rather him go 15 yards and run out of bounds? They start to think. Probably want him to go score. So I may want to expose him to high intensity sprints so when that time comes, he's prepared to do so.
I think that's a really weird polar opposite paradox, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that football coaches do not sprint their guys because they don't want them to get hurt. But yet what you and I say and what Les Bellman would say is that it's the opposite, that we sprint guys for the health benefits of sprinting, that they will actually be healthier because they're exposed to max velocity.
Right, absolutely. And, fortunate here to be with Brian Callahan, our head coach, who definitely understands that. He's on board, full force, full steam ahead with speed development. He's a high speed offense and he understands speed is king. So we're fortunate here to have a head coach, head football coach that's really bought into it and gives us the opportunity to try to develop these guys at a very high level and try to create, just a degree of separation at this level is key.
Now, we have a mutual friend in Les Bellman, and I don't know if I would have ever met you and would have ever asked you to speak at our sprint-based football clinic in Ravenwood, Tennessee, and you were fantastic and all that. But I don't know if I would have met you if it wasn't for Les. And it's so cool about our business is that we form these networks because we get to become friends with people. And you said that you met Les in around 2019. I think I met Les in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And like you, it's kind of like love at first sight. It's like as soon as I heard him speak, I went to him afterwards and I said, man, I'd love to work with you. And he said, I'd love to work with you. So it's like,
right.
We have a very similar situation. But when I really knew that you and Les were working together and collaborating was in that crazy 2 years that you were at Arizona.
Right.
When you guys were pretty bad your first year, 5-7, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first year there, we were 5-7. It was crazy. The kids worked really hard, just needed to be developed at the end of the day. Our director of strength and conditioning, Tyler Owens, did an awesome job, connecting. We connected the weight room to the speed work and things like that. And, you bring up just working together. I think that's something that's been lost. I think coaches in the past, together with other coaches, because it was about the athlete and not the coach necessarily. But, in years past, I've seen guys, kind of get in the shell and kind of do their own thing. And, I think that's a detriment to the industry because you need to have like-minded people with different experiences to help you grow as a coach at the end of the day. So me meeting you and talking shop and getting on phone calls and watching your stuff, it helps me. I'm a better coach because of that. And I hope, some of the things that I share with you does the same for you. It's just like me and Lester's relationship. And for the last 6 years, man, we get on calls and talk about what we're doing. Hey, man, I've researched this. This is what I've been doing. You ought to try this. These are the results. Les will call me and say, hey, man, I got something new. So just doing that, I think it makes the industry better. At the end of the day, I know I won't be able to do this forever. And I want to try to pass down and, help as many people as I can while I can in doing this thing. So with Les, had a really great relationship with Les, and Les had a really good background in sports science. I did it. My sports science background was stopwatch and timing gates. That was how I tracked everything and how I implemented my programs and things like that. So he had, experience with the force plates. I had experience with that stuff, but not breaking it down science wise and, putting, athlete management systems together, all of that stuff. I understood it, but never really did it. So being able to have him, we didn't have a true sports science program at Arizona. We had our great coach, Aaron Bros, who did our quarterbacks, ran our developmental group. He ran our sports science catapult. He created reports and things like that. But it took away a lot of time for us being able to do extra things we wanted to do, mobility wise, speed wise, strength conditioning wise, because we were sitting at the computer. So my relationship with Les, I'm saying, hey, man, I got an idea. What do you think about you coming on board? We don't have a true sports science department. We're talking about trying to create something. So I'm going to pitch. Let's just bring you in to be our sports scientist. You create us an athlete management system where we can put our Nord board, our force plates, our 1080 data in one spot and be able to calculate and track all this data and be able to make decisions at the end of the day, because we're too slow at it, for sure. I mean, it takes me a while to get that stuff in. And by the time I need to make a decision, I'm using my coach's eye at the end of the day. So what was good was having Les come in with the sports science piece and being able to confirm what I'm already seeing, because that's a much needed thing when you're trying to prove something to football coaches that don't deal with strength conditioning and speed. Being able to present them with the whys. Hey, coach, I'm seeing this and the data showing the same thing. So that built trust and respect with the football coaches and strength staff. So that was a big help, being able to have him come in and create that athlete management system for us. And man, as you can see, we were able to go from 5-7 and the kids worked hard. And it took everybody at the end of the day. It was nutrition, athletic trainers. We had a sprint-based return to play. Our head athletic trainer, Kevin Kikagaiwa, who's now with the Seattle Seahawks, PT position there. He really bought into it. And so it was a team effort, man. I tell people I was a piece of it, but at the end of the day, all the success we had, it wasn't me. It wasn't one person. It was everybody coming together, putting their strengths together and really caring about the kids and trying to create great environment for those guys to perform at the highest level.
And if I remember right, you guys damn near won every game. You had a chance to go national, didn't you?
10-3 with a triple overtime loss to USC, overtime loss to Mississippi State kind of early in the season, and then I believe a 7-point loss to Washington, who went to the national championship. So we thought, it's funny, and we probably the only people that thought this, we're sitting in the offseason and we're looking at how our kids are progressing, and we're like, man, we got a shot to win this thing. This is the last year of the Pac-12. We've got a shot. We kept our guys. Guys didn't get in the portal. So we thought we had a real shot, and we had a couple games where we weren't able to pull it out. But, man, it was a special season. I think it was only the fourth time in Arizona football history in 100 years where a team won 10 or more games. So that was special. And, a lot of special people in that building that were a part of, what we did. It was awesome to be able to, because I started in-season speed training back in 2003. I was introduced to that way back in 2003 when I first started by game.
Who introduced you to that? Because
Jason Poeth, he's a strength coach at the University of Alabama. He's the guy that got me into strength conditioning. So he introduced it to me. I did it, and we in '03 we were doing it with high school baseball teams and football teams. And so that's why, and ever since then, I was sold because I saw the results of what it did. And it was just trying to find a way to convince football coaches at a higher level that, hey, this can be a benefit to everybody, the players, the coaches, and ultimately give us a better chance, to win football games at the end of the day. So, like I said, I've been kind of new now, but I've been doing it since 2003. It's 2025 now. So it's been something I've believed in for a long time, and just figuring out a way to introduce it in a way where coaches understood it. And really just, you got to prove it at the end of the day. And I was first able to prove it at the University of Missouri. I took one running back, Larry Roundtree, and we did speed training before every practice. Some form of speed training, drill work, short sprint, whatever, every day before practice. And he was a 20-plus carry guy in the SEC. So what we noticed in years past, GPS numbers showed as the year went on, guys weren't running as fast. Same plays, same players. Guy that was running 21, 22 at the beginning of the year, he's not going over 19 miles an hour in any games on the back end. So I took him, did that. He started feeling better before practice. He was primed and ready to go. He noticed that. And then we tracked him, and he was able to sustain it even in the later weeks. He was running PR in his speed. So our director at the time, Zach Wolfen, who's our director here with the Tennessee Titans, he saw that and we talked, and he's like, hey, this is something we need to look into. And so was able to prove it with just one athlete. It's taken off since then. And once, of course, got to Arizona and being able to put that out there, what we were doing, behind the scenes, I think a lot of people are jumping on board. But yeah, this is something that Jason Poeth, who's at the University of Alabama, introduced to me back in 2003. Been a long time coming.
Yeah, thank God, though. Now, I talked to Kyle Bolton, who's at TCU, and I asked him, I said, how hard was it to get your coaches to buy in? And he kind of acted like, I'm not sure if they're bought in yet. They may still be a few years away. What are the hardest things to talk to coaches about?
Well, in my experience, and I don't know if this is a gift, but I love people. I build genuine relationships with people. I think that's the first thing. If I'm dealing with a coach, is what kind of personal relationship do I have with this coach? Because if I have a great personal relationship, we're going to have conversations to where we can talk about ideas and bounce ideas off of one another. And there's really no pushback per se, because there's a mutual respect. This guy wants what's best for the team. And, I feel like he knows what he's doing. So if he's saying this and he can prove some of these things, why not try it? So I think I was fortunate. Jed Fish, who's now the head coach at the University of Washington, he was a fast-paced offensive guy, and speed was something he was very interested in. So, he gave us the keys. He said, hey, guys, you're going to do whatever you think is best for this team. If you believe they're going to get faster, we want to do it. And so we did it, and every coach was coming to him the coaches didn't know we were doing the in season at the time, but they started noticing guys are running faster at practice. We're practicing faster routes, guys that, couldn't create separation or starting. So with that, there was complete buy-in from the coaches. And I think that's big because our football coaches at the University of Arizona were a big part. They pushed speed as much as anybody. They were on speed. They showed up. They cheered for the kids, pushed them. And that made a big difference in the effort that you're getting, because it's about quality reps at the end of the day. And, I think that was another piece that resonated with the coaches. I told them, hey, I'm asking for 2 to 3 sprints, high quality sprints. I'm not asking for a whole lot. We'll start at 10 to 15 yards, bump it out to 20, maybe 30, but we'll keep it in a comfortable range to these guys, and we'll program it the right way. And, I'll make decisions based on what I'm seeing. So some sessions we may have 4 runs in a speed session, and a guy PRs 2 times in a row, first 2 runs, I pull that guy. That's just my philosophy. Central nervous system is shot. Body has felt 2 runs and speeds they've never felt before. So usually when that happens, guys get pretty fatigued. So what I would do is pull those guys and say, hey, the next 2 reps, you're going to just do a tempo run off to the side when it's your time to go. Or, have a guy that is way below his threshold. And that guy maybe, the weekend was too rough on him. So I'm going to pull that guy because I don't want to get anybody hurt at the end of the day. I don't want to be negligent at the end of the day, using your coach's eye and really trying to dial in a system to where the coaches know you're not going to put the kids and the athletes in harm's way. I think that's another big part, is being able to articulate that and, build trust and respect with the coaches on that. Hey, I'm never going to put guys in an adverse situation to where it's going to be a detriment to this team. It's not about me. It's about the athlete. If the athlete does not have it this day, I'm not going to push him to the limit, because guess what? Speed programs 10 months out of 12. The only time they're not training speed is in May and in December in Thanksgiving breaks, when they calculated that to up about 2 months of breaks that they had away from us when they weren't doing speed training. The other 10 months, they're doing a speed training plan. And in May, we sent them home with a plan. A lot of guys are sending videos of them working. So almost some of the guys were 11 months out of the year, they're doing speed training. It showed built resilience. In that last year, we went 10-3. A big part of that was what we did in the weight room, matched up. Tyler Owens did an awesome job matching up the weight room with the speed training. We collaborated, made sure that all that stuff matched up. And we had 0 soft tissue injuries that year. No games missed. So all of our primetime players played in every game. We just had a reduction every year in soft tissue injuries and time lost for practice and games. And at the end of the day, availability is king when you talk about your best players being able to play week in and week out.
Yeah, I think at any level. I mean, I coach a lot at the freshman high school level. And, we had like 10 really good players that we couldn't lose.
Right.
And hell, the Tennessee Titans have about 10 guys they can't lose either.
Right.
And so and everybody plays, but man, you just cannot lose your best kids.
Right.
You said something that I want you to see if you can give me an example of. You said you matched up the weight room and the sprint program. Can you give me an example of how that would work?
So Tio would match if we were working. So we would work through power. We have 1080s. So that was a big help. 1080 sprints. I started using those right after the 2018 season. So I've had a lot of experience with that. And it's been a big help being able to, program old school speed training with new school technology, being able to, create systems through that. In the weight room, what we would do is match up our power speed days with our power in the weight room, our velocity days with our velocity in the weight room. So everything in season was about speed at the end of the day in the weight room as well. So everything was about speed and power. I talked about us changing our program from strength conditioning to a strength, speed, and power program. So everything we did, no matter how much weight we had on the bar, we wanted it moving fast. So depending on if we were having heavy loaded sprint work, we tried to match that in the weight room. Vertical emphasis on max V. We did a lot of stuff in the weight room, a lot of unilateral work with guys that normally wouldn't get that work. Between the bigs and the skill guys, we also matched up, their style of play. The bigs, they spend a lot more time in the power phase, force production, quick, rate of force development. How fast am I strong at the end of the day? Because that's football. Not necessarily how strong am I. How much force can I apply in the shortest period of time? That's what football is, especially up front. So we program our speed work and our weight room work to correlate what those guys were expected to do in a football game.
Now, one of the problems I have with high school coaches is many of them believe in sprinting. They're skill people, but they don't sprint. They're big. But yet, one of my favorite subjects is the big cats are the guys that are drafted first in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They're the big guys that can really sprint. And I know that they don't truly sprint in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches, Titan GPS is the ultimate tool for football programs, including back-to-back Minnesota State champion Stewartville High School, a leader in sprint-based football. Built specifically for high school football, Titan tracks the metrics that matter: top speed, explosive acceleration, speed repeatability, and the game-changing truck stick. Titan's easy-to-use system delivers actionable insights at a glance, and their exceptional customer service ensures you're supported every step of the way. With built-in leaderboards to fuel competition and unmatched accountability, because the eye in the sky doesn't lie, champions trust Titan GPS, proudly made in the USA. Ready to join the best? Message them on X at Titan Sensor today to get started. But the ability to sprint makes them a better player,
Right.
allows them to play later into their career. I believe it even helps them to play in the fourth quarter when other people are tired.
Right.
So are you a believer in developing speed with your bigs?
Whole team, coaches, trainers. I don't care who you are. I believe in speed development. So for our bigs, from a central nervous system standpoint, neural drive is huge for the guys up front. Like I just said, the faster you can sprint, the more force you can create in a short period of time, which is what those guys are asked to do down in and down out. And exposing them to high intensity sprint work allows them to play later in the fourth quarter and maintain the intensities of play that they had in the first quarter at the end of the day, because that intensity of a 2 yard sprint, a 5 yard sprint is higher than what people think. And if you're not exposed to that, right, you get in the fourth quarter, you're not as efficient moving. Your coordination goes, all those things go. And now, hey, that's the difference in a first down. It's the difference in a sack or a touchdown. That split second that the offensive line broke down, or that split second that defensive lineman, that rush edge couldn't get to the quarterback because he's fatigued from a neural standpoint, because he's never been exposed to high intensity sprint work, which is what we're asking guys to do. It's a sprinting sport. And, at the end of the day, there's not a whole lot of jogging in football, unless you're jogging off the field, not between plays, between the lines. So just exposing those guys and increasing their neural drive, their coordination. To me, sprint work enhances your ability to change directions and make decisions, focus, all those things. There's research out there that talks about focus and what sprint training does for the brain. So you're talking about retention of the playbook. Can you get in the fourth quarter and from a mental standpoint, not make those mental errors? I think speed training enhances that. And now it's not a one session speed training. It's continual speed training over time, not overnight, where you see these effects. So its consistency is very key. And you don't have to do a whole lot of it. But over time, if I'm doing 2 to 3 sprints a week and I'm playing teams that's not, I got a player for 3 years. That's a lot of sprints that accumulate. And, it's about longevity at this level, trying to create something where guys don't lose a step, because that's the first narrative, I hear when a guy, he lost a step. If we can create an environment where guys aren't losing a step, then that's longevity for them and their families. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. Everybody has success when the players have success on the field. Every coach, every family has success off the field at the end of the day. So that's a priority. Yeah, the big guys, I love seeing them sprint. We got guys like Jeff Simmons who play in the middle.
He's huge, right? How big is Simmons?
Simmons is around 325, and Sweat, I think, was around about 350, 360 this year. And these guys are explosive and fast. I get those guys on the 1080, and you won't believe how fast they can sprint. And it shows up in the games. Definitely does. You can see plays where guys are able to get out there and sprint and make plays that they may not have been able to make, later in the year, had they not been exposed to those, stimuluses.
Well, first of all, I was going to tell you, one of my quotes that I say all the time is that speed grows like a tree. It will grow, but we have to be patient.
Correct.
And you have to stay consistent. But the other thing I like to say is that we want athletes at every position. And if I ask you to define an athlete, I think I know the first word out of your mouth.
Fast.
Fast, right? Fast, explosive. Never do we say slow and weak, but boy, they can run all day.
Right.
It's really a speed-based game.
Right.
Tell me about your background as an athlete.
So I grew up in Mobile, Alabama. Like I said, my dad was a coach, football coach, track coach, baseball. So I played 4 sports, grew up there. All I ever did was play sports and go to church. So that was my background. My dad was a Marine. My granddad was a pastor. I was in the Army. So there was only one way, the right way. And, there was only one standard. And I try to keep it simple as this: pursue excellence at the end of the day. That was the only standard my dad had for us is, pursue excellence. The standard is excellent. And I think every man and woman can look in the mirror and say, I know what excellent is for me. You know what excellent is for you. And you can look at yourself in the mirror and be very clear if you pursued excellence that day in whatever you did. whether it's on the field, classroom. Some days I looked in the mirror and it's like, I did it. And, being realistic with myself, and just as you grow, you start to, realize, hey, it's just take it day by day, pursue excellence. I don't have to, there's only, you either did or you didn't. There's no in between. So, those principles growing up in life, I ran track, played football, baseball, all the sports, and I was able to have success. I was fast. I was never very big, but I was fast. That's what allowed me to play the game. I could run. So for me, knowing that and experiencing that, it's a no-brainer for me to, preach speed development. And I love to see guys, and it's development. I love to see guys that come in. Tetairoa McMillan at the University of Arizona, wide receiver, came in at 19.6 miles per hour, freshman year. Went for 700 yards receiving. Year two, he was at 22.15, went for 1,400 yards. Did that make a big difference? Absolutely. He was able to separate. He was always a great player. It didn't make him a great player, but it allowed him to make more plays at the end of the day. My background, my dad's background in coaching, is the reason that I became a coach at the end of the day. I don't know if I told you this, but, recently my dad passed on March 5th this year, 2 days before my birthday. So, through that, I'm going to grow at the end of the day. Like I've always had, my dad always taught us, through situations, circumstances, God doesn't make mistakes. I'm a man of faith. And it's given me more of a sense of servants. My father and my grandfather taught us serve God, serve your family, and serve others. And I try to do that every day in my life and whatever I'm doing. So, with, what's happened in the near past, I've just got a new sense of, I want to continue to do that, continue the work that he did, because he was able to affect a lot of kids using speed at the end of the day. That's why I have such a love for it, because all I ever wanted to be was my dad at the end of the day. He was the guy that I looked up to. So it's been a blessing that God's blessed me to be in this role, to be able to try to use something as small as speed development. It's not all about, that's the platform that I use, but it's about the lives and the impact that you have on the people around you. If I can do a couple drills and sprints to create buy-in and create relationships, awesome. I get to build relationships with people and watch them run fast and perform and reach their goals. So that's kind of my philosophy and, my background and my upbringing. But yeah, my dad and my granddad and my uncles, had a big influence on me, who I am. And it's always been about others at the end of the day, because my granddad taught us if you take care of others, you'll always be taken care of. So I'm a living witness, man. I'm not here. I didn't get here on my own. I'm just a coach, that decided I wanted to help people. And along the way, people thought I was pretty good at what I did and made calls, and they got jobs and they offered me positions. And I guess I did a good job. And so they kept calling. So, it's a blessing. And, I always say to God be the glory. I try to be humble, and because at the end of the day, if I ever get to the point to where I feel like I made it, I need to go do something else. So I'm continuing to grow and learn from people. That's why I like talking to you and Les, guys like Ryan Grubbs and anybody, that's doing things at a high level. I want to talk to you. I want to pick your brain. I want to give you some of the things I'm doing, some ideas. And the biggest thing I would give to anybody as a coach, my biggest successes, I feel like as a coach, was when I coached high school kids. Like, I think I grew more in any time in my life when I was a high school coach. And I spent, probably as a football, track, and strength coach, double-digit years in high school. So those years were some of the years that really made me who I am at the end of the day. So I would admonish any coach, if you're a professional, college, I don't care what you are, if you have some extra time, man, go do a speed camp with high school kids. Find some local high school kids to invest in, because they taught me a lot. I learned a lot from dealing with having to solve problems with, lack of equipment. Guys that are developing, you have two different 15-year-olds. One 15-year-old can as strong as an 18-year-old. The other one's as strong as an 11-year-old. So learning how to develop both guys in the same room and help both of them at the same time was something I learned in high school. And it's definitely served me well now. We have rookies, we have vets. Can't train a rookie like you train a vet. We want both to develop, but we develop in a different way.
Now, John, I know you're a great dad, but tell me about the athletic development of your own kids.
I always said if I'm going to develop other kids, I'm definitely going to develop mine. So they're my guinea pigs. So I get to try all kinds of stuff on my kids, and I'll try it on them. I'll try it on me, and before I introduce it anywhere else. But I have a 12 and an 8 year old that do a lot of speed development right now, and our head strength coach, his son is 12, and all the kids around the building, I train them any chance I get, and I actually have a neighborhood group right in front of my house that 2, 3 days a week, I'll get those guys and girls out there and do speed development. But I definitely spend a lot of time with my kids after work, making sure that, I try to develop them. And that's another way of it teaches me patience, teaches me different ways to get through to different people, different personalities, how to get guys to focus and things like that. So even with that, that's another piece to the puzzle that allows me to be a better coach, I think, at the NFL level, being able to train my kids.
I think, too, that when you're working with little kids, you're reminded how important it is to keep it fun.
Right.
And it is fun, right?
Right. And keep it simple.
For sure. Tell me, last question. Tell me about the NFL. Was it your goal to be in the NFL? And what surprised you about your first year in the NFL?
I prayed for the first time to coach in the NFL in 2009. That was the first prayer that I prayed in 2009, and I made it in 2024. But along the way, God gave me the vision that I would make it. So I never lost hold of that. And I just went to work. I spent 2 years at Belhaven University. I was coach corners and I was assistant strength coach there. And then I went to high school. So I went from college to high school. Most people would say, you're going the wrong way. But those years in high school really helped me develop as a coach and allowed me, when I got back to college, I think, to be a much better coach than I would have been had I not spent those years in high school. So it was just a thing I did, man. I just went to work and I said, God, if it's your will, I'll make it. But wherever I'm at, I'm going to do the best I can to build relationships. I'm going to do the best I can to develop people, develop skill sets, develop speed, develop strength. Whatever I'm tasked to do, I'm going to do my best, and the rest will take care of itself. So I did that. And from 2009 to 2024, when it actually happened. So I just stayed the course, man. And a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people along the way invested in me and gave me opportunities to coach. And through that, I was able to make it here at the end of the day. Being here in an NFL, probably back in 2009, I would have never thought that I would work in the NFL with the type of guys that I work with. The guys that I work with are the most humble people that you ever want to meet. You would never know that those guys are coaching at the highest level. I worked with a guy named Mark Lavatt, who's coached in the NFL for about 26 years. The most humble person you ever meet, most knowledgeable person. He knows speed. He knows everything. So I'm able to talk with him and learn. But he's the most humble guy you ever meet. You'll never know that he's coached in the NFL and won Super Bowls if you met him. I coach with a guy named Brian Bell, who does a lot of work with our bigs and is learning speed development for the bigs. That's been awesome to work alongside him. Super humble guy. You would never know he's an NFL coach. I work with the super brilliant our sports science director, Grant Thorne. We're like the dynamic duo because he has a speed development background, does a really awesome job with our sports science and really integrating, the data into real life, because a lot of time guys have data, but they don't apply it. He does the best I've ever seen at applying, the data and the science to the field and the weight room and everything we're doing speed development wise. I meet with him every week, and say, hey, look, what are we missing? Hey, we got these two guys that need more accelerations. Get those guys before practice on the 1080, get those things in and move on. So being able to have guys like that, and then, our director of strength conditioning, who's super humble guy, family guy, all about others, Zach Woofin, just being able to work with guys who are great people, and not only great coaches, but elite people. Our head football coach, same way. All of our assistant coaches, so that just everybody in the building, our head ATC, our PTs, really, really good people. And it was, not necessarily a shock, but, it's surprising to be in a organization with so many people, their job at a high level that lack ego, very low ego and things like that. One of the biggest surprises from this NFL season, I knew it was a game of inches, but just how close like these games can be. Just one, it's hard to get a first down in the NFL. 3rd and 2 is like 3rd and 8 in college. So I mean, the amount of times you come up a half a yard short in the NFL is insane. And just it's truly a game of inches. And another thing, players are just as hungry as some of the high school kids that I've coached. I think sometimes guys think guys get to the NFL and get comfortable, but man, some of these guys are, they're fighting for their job every day at the end of the day. And that's the mindset they carry. And we've got a team full of really good players and really good people at the end of the day. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken away. I'm fortunate, I'm blessed to be here in Nashville with the Titans because I think this is a great organization from top to bottom. And, I think we can do great things if we stick together and stay the course.
Well, I am a huge fan, and not just of yours, but I think I'm a fan of the Titans now after hearing you talk like you talk. And I can't wait to make a trip down and spend a day looking around one of these times. And it was so great to have you actually speak at our sprint-based football clinic down at Ravenwood High School. Which community do you live in Nashville?
I live in Franklin, so that was about a 15-minute drive from the house. So it's right there in my area.
Do you live closer to Franklin High School or Centennial?
I live closer to Centennial, I believe.
Okay, because I taught 2 years at Franklin High.
Yeah, I remember. I saw that.
And so I know that area so well. I would have stayed forever if they would have paid teachers better. And Chicago area, let's just say, pays a lot better than the Tennessee high schools. But what a great area Franklin is.
Also, yeah, awesome area. Great for families. A lot to do outside. I got 4 kids, so that's big. Getting them out of the house so they don't run my wife crazy.
So what high school do you think they'll go to?
I'm assuming they'll either go to Page or Ravenwood, one of the two.
Ravenwood, man, they got it all going on in football right now.
Right. I know some of the coaches over there too, built relationship with some of the track coaches, strength coach, football coaches. So, and same with Page, we try to help out wherever we can with some of the middle school stuff around here, just give back. But great community, great place to raise a family. So I'm praying that we can win a lot of football games for the Tennessee Titans so we stay here for a long time.
Okay, how many are you going to win next year?
Who knows? I know we're going to go into every game with the intention to win it. So I know that, and everybody's going to put every ounce of effort they have in the offseason and in-season training to make sure we do that. So there's no doubt in my mind.
Well, good luck to you, John, and thank you so much for coming on the show, and we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking to you as always. And, definitely I'm going to hold you to that coming down here to visit, man, get you in the weight room and get you to a practice or something like that. You see, walk around, maybe get to a game.
Oh, yeah. I'd love that, man. All right. Take care. Have a good night, John.
Yes, sir. You too. Be blessed.
Thank you again for listening to the Sprint-based football series on the Coach and Coordinator podcast. Be sure to check out our presenting sponsor, Titan GPS. It's used by Sprint-based football coaches to get better data and understand the player load and how they can adjust that over the course of the season. It'll help you find out a lot about your team. It's used by Garrett Muller, who's a 2-time state champion at Stewartville High School in Minnesota. He uses it for all kinds of things, like seeing how his team's speed is progressing over the course of the season. I could say that in 2024, they actually got faster over the course of the season following their sprint-based football recipe. Titan Sensors also has the popular truck stick metric designed specifically for football and inspired by sprint-based football. Follow all we're doing at coachandcoordinator.com. You can get our show notes there. We have articles on these episodes as well. And follow us on X at Coach K. Grabowski.